Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is very exciting because I finally get to share publicly the set that I designed for Altenew. This is Blooms of Friendship, and originally this was released in the Wonders of Color class that I did in March. And so Altenew in all of their sets have these little inserts that you can cut out to use as cards, but I actually colored those digitally. I designed the cards that are in the insert and I colored them digitally, so those are mine. This whole process was very different. This is also the Leafy Splendor. I'm not going to use the stencils, but I am going to use the 3D embossing for the card. And so originally, I've taught with Altenew for years, and I've done solo classes, I've done classes where I have been a teacher amongst other really, awesome, talented teachers. And so when they reached out to me for this class, they asked if I would be interested in designing a stamp set with coordinating die for the set, which was something I'd never had the opportunity to do. And so the whole thing was very, very cool. And, being able to create the inserts and just kind of have my hand in the process from the very beginning to the end was really very enjoyable. And so now, if you took that class, which is still available, just minus the live version. I think they have a replay. But if you took that class, you already own it. And I'm just going to, show you some different card designs that you can make with it. And if you haven't taken that class is still available. And this set is part of the bundle, or now you can just buy it on its own. So it has, I'm using the branch wreath, but there's also a leaf wreath in the set. One prairie rose, one daisy that's single, as well as their single leaves, and then the kind of swag or bouquet that's already put together. I'm using all of the things minus the leaf wreath for my cards today. But they work really well together, to be able to kind of build your own, or if you're a person who likes the pre-built, there's an option in there as well. This is part of their October release, which I will link the blog below if you would like to hop over there. I think the giveaway is open. I think they're going to do the announce to the 9th, maybe. All the information's over on my blog. So if you haven't hopped along on the little blog hop, there's a giveaway there. And then I think they're also doing a giveaway on Instagram. So lots of opportunities to win. You may notice that this video is a little bit shorter. Part of that is because my allergies are acting up. I'm trying very, very hard not to sniffle in your ear, but there's no promises that there will be no sniffles. I can't guarantee it. So here, coloring the wreath with the Altenew Artist markers, if you're unfamiliar, they do have a brush tip, which is typically what I color with, but they also have a bullet. And I found for coloring the smaller flowers or coloring like this wreath, the bullet is actually really helpful to be able to get into those smaller areas. So I did add a shadow, to kind of around the branch wreath, and then added a mid-tone. And then I think this is the lightest color that we're finally just filling everything in. I actually used 3 different packs of markers, but the 2 that I used mostly are the Sunshine Valley Garden and the Water Garden. I did take some grays from the, I can't remember the name of it. It's the set E. But you could, use any grays. Those just happens to be the ones that I grabbed to do the small white flowers that are in the pre-built swag. But yeah, so you should be able to, use any of the grays. I know that they have other ones. I think they have specifically smaller collections that are like a rocks collection that are just all grays. So anyway, designing the cards for the inserts, and then designing the cards for the class, and then designing these cards, I think that I have put together 10 different card designs that you could use these four. And so you guys know, like, I'm a big fan of the sets being super versatile and you being able to get the most bang for your buck. And between the, like, if you took the class or you intend to take the class, the cards that we have today and then the inserts that you get in the set, like, you should have bare minimum 10 different designs that you can recreate without ever having to touch your own ideas for how you would, do a layout or something like that. So for the greens, I do like when there is a variety of color in my greens. If you guys watch my channel, you know that to be true. So I used the greens, and for the daisy leaves, I went over them, kind of color glazed them with a yellow, and that's just to make it more of a yellow green. They're the little prairie roses I did with the pinks. The yellows were a bit of a struggle for me. But let's talk about the pinks. The pinks work really, really nicely. So here I'm going in with my darkest color. I'm adding in my shadows, any point where two places meet or where one object lays on top of another. But then also I have these lines that are drawn in there. And if for some of them, I am adding a little bit of shadow into those lines. That's just going to help give the petal more movement because it'll have those peaks and those valleys. But one of the things, because I typically like a lot of contrast in my coloring, if you feel like your colors are too blended out, like, don't forget, you can always go back in with your darkest color and kind of really bolster up those shadows to help create that contrast, which will give you more dimension. So I do definitely do that with the pink flowers. Yellows are hard to get contrast from, period. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of markers you're using because it's such a bright color. It's really hard to get a true shadow with just a yellow. But you can go in and add some warmer browns or sometimes you can even like lend more towards like the green side of things and, be able to get more depth that way. So maybe try like experimenting around with your different colors to see what you can do. Another thing, you can do if you don't have a lot of markers or maybe you only have one set of markers, you can also use their complementary color. So to add as shadows to like a yellow flower, yellow's complement is purple. So you could use a purple or a blue violet to maybe add in some darker shadows that would help give you a more natural depth of color. With pink, its complementary color is a yellow green. So, you would just have to make sure that the color that you're adding isn't overpowering the color you actually want to show, but just enough to glaze over the top of it to give those shadows. For all of these, let's talk about the prairie rose leaf. I did add in a little bit of teal as my darkest color, and then I went right over it with the same greens that I previously used. But that darker teal is just going to give us another layer of color, another layer of shadow that's going to help them look different. With the other one, we used the greens and then used our lightest colors, that yellow, to kind of glaze over it. With those other leaves, we used a blue green and then layered the greens over that to just, extend out what we can do with our colors. For this one, this is the swag. I am going to show you how I colored this as well, but because I knew I was creating two cards and I am a very matchy person when it comes to wanting my cards to photograph nicely with each other, I colored them all the same because I wasn't 100% committed to my layout. And so by coloring all of the daisies yellow and all of the prairie roses pink, and then the like the little filler flowers white, a neutral is always a good idea if you're, not 100% committed to what you're going to be doing. But this then gives me the opportunity to cut out all of the pieces with a coordinating die and play around with the elements, knowing that they're all going to work really nicely together. And I haven't kind of pigeonholed my design because, I've colored one flower blue and one flower pink and one flower orange and one flower yellow. And now, if I want to put them all together, maybe the swag isn't going to match the supporting flowers or, vice versa. So doing them all in one color just really helps you to be able to kind of play around with the pieces all in one color, all in the same color scheme. Obviously, they're not all in the same color. So for the swag, the daisy is the center, and then the two flowers on either side are the kind of like prairie roses. So I typically color those to be the same, but if you wanted to, stamp out one or two of the prairie roses and do them in different colors, then you could, do them in different colors within the swag, and they would make sense with each other. I also didn't even realize I cut it out, but the white flowers, those, flowers that fill in to help make it a bouquet, I did fill in with the yellow, just picked one of the yellows a bit on the darker side and just filled in those little centers. I didn't do any sort of shading on them at all. So like I said, it was definitely different than what I typically do with an illustration. Like some companies will come to me and say, hey, I have an idea for XYZ. Is this something that, you think you can do? And I will tell them yes or no. Some companies are like, hey, we'd love to work with you. If you have anything already done, can you bring it to us? So this one was a little bit different where, they came to me and we talked about, what maybe both of us would kind of like to see. And then they pretty much let me just run with what I wanted to do. Because you guys know, like, I really like them to be the most versatile. So, you have that wooden branch wreath, which is a little bit more rustic, but then you also have, the wreath that has the leaves on it. You can combine them together to use them together, or you can use them separately. And that one's a bit more like spring or summer. Whereas the branch is maybe a little bit more rustic, rugged, fall kind of feel to it. So just really, really, it was super fun to create that and, have it to be able to teach like that whole class. All the cards for that whole class is of this set. So, if you took that class, I hope that you enjoyed it. We talked a lot about different ways to different techniques you can use to get different looks out of the same products, which I try to do anyway, here on my YouTube channel, because that's important to me as a consumer, as somebody who, started this as a hobbyist before I turned it into my full-time job. Like, I want to be able to, continue being true to myself in what I found important in the hobby. So here for the leaves, like they're all being colored the same green. The only difference is some of them do have that blue-green base, and then some of them will get the yellow kind of glaze right over the top of it. So that way, even though they're all in the same color family, like I'm using those same greens repeatedly, I'm switching it up just enough to, for them to look a little bit different in their color scheme. The other thing that I did with this particular swag was in that water garden set, I used some of the one of the lighter, like tealish blue colors to go over the leaves for the prairie rose. So now I have the true green, a yellow green, and then a more blue green to really, break up those all of that foliage that's in the set. But I really love, if you guys have been around my channel, you guys know pink, yellow, and green is like a staple color combination for me, because I just think it's so bright and fun, and it feels like summery to me, and so I love that. So here, this is all of them colored up. Now I'm just going to go ahead and match up their dyes, their coordinating dyes. All of the images have dyes. Not all of the sentiments do. The word friendship does have a coordinating dye. And then I think the thinking of you sentiment also has, or maybe it's the grateful for you. I can't remember. One of the smaller ones does have a coordinating dye. But the ones that are more like like it can be trimmed into a banner, those don't have a dye, and that just keeps the cost down for you guys. So here, I kind of laid everything out the way that I wanted them, how I was happy with them looking, and I am going to glue them together. I was happy with the way that the floral arrangements looked, but I was not happy with the way that the background looked. The background looked pretty boring to me. So before I moved them and made myself do all the hard work again, I glued the flowers, the leaves, all of that, like the pieces, parts together so that I can move them as one full piece. And then I went in and did the background work that I wanted to do. So once again, this is that swag piece, and I'm just extending it out with the florals that we have as singles to just make it like span out as a diagonal across the card. So just adding that adhesive, laying it down, picking up what I can, and then adding more adhesive, laying it down on top, and picking up those final couple of leaves and florals. The white cardstock, I did end up trimming down just a little bit so that way that I could mat them on colored card bases. To me, that does help like tie in the whole thing. I'm using the Leafy Splendor, and this actually was part of, they're releasing this one too, but this was part of the, I think it was Secret Garden retreat that I did earlier this year. That one was in there too. So those are both from classes that I've taught at. But the great thing about Altenews 3D embossing is you can emboss them vertically like we just did here, or you can emboss, because they're large enough, you can emboss them horizontally. So that way you can change the way that the leaves are flowing. So the first one, the leaves are kind of flowing, left to right. The second one, then they're leaning more towards the right when we flip the card vertically, which I really like that you can get two different looks from it. Not adding any color or anything, we're just adding interest with that texture in the background and kind of filling it up. And here is me messing around to try to figure out what orientation I want to put those in. For the sentiment, the Obsidian ink from Altenew is one, if I want something to be like a bold black, solid black, that is my go-to ink, because it is black. It is dark. It is solid. It's a great ink. Sometimes it works with your alcohol markers, but sometimes you do have to give a minute to dry or heat set it, just to make sure that it doesn't smear. And I've never had any issues with that. For the background, I love color with like black and white, just really clean contrast. And they actually put these out a while ago. I just didn't have them. They have a titanium white gouache and then a carbon black. And this you typically see in watercolors. And I'm going to use it to put some black spatters in the background instead of using ink. So you saw me just put like a little dollop of the black gouache, and then I added a little bit of water to make it so that I could spatter it. I know that's not for everybody. And then I forgot to film it, but I also used their iridescent shimmer spray and spattered that onto the background as well. So just add some more interest. For the 3D embossing panels, sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to get them to stick because there's so much texture. So I opted to use some of the tape, the ultra sticky tape from Altenew. And then in order to make sure that I don't have any issues moving it around if I need to, like I have enough of a grace period, I put my liquid adhesive on top of the sticky tape. So I know it's not going to move because that tape is there, but I know it's not going to be an immediate, like, I'm not going to be able to pull it back up because I've put that liquid glue there and it just gives me a little bit of time. So I used Forest Glades and Coral Berry. This is from Altenew's new cardstock line. And I recently did a video with that as well, to add even more interest because these are pretty clean and simple cards. I recognize that. I went ahead and popped them up using the Instant Foam or Instant Dimension foam adhesive. This is also from Altenew. And so I just added that to the back of the pieces that we already glued together. And that way I could pop them up over that embossing. So we have the texture from the embossing, we have the height from the foam tape, and they worked really nicely. One of the last thing, after I put on the sentiments, I accented them with the black enamel dots from Altenew. I added some shimmer to my flowers, and then I did add just a little bit of white highlights with my white gel pen to the centers of the flowers, to like the stamen, those kind of areas. And then that's it. That finishes both cards. So I hope that this inspires you guys to hop along, the blog hop and, maybe make some, brighter, clean and simple cards. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.